this hideout, and welcome to the Pantheon, where we're getting in some vampiric sort of tendencies. You know, I've got the urge to just drain people of blood. And so does Florian, Voldaren, Scion. 3 mana for a 3/3 with first strike. He's a vampire noble, so he's quite regal, you know. He likes to do sort of cool sort of things, like oppressing the poor. And at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponent's lost this turn. Exile one of those cards and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exile card this turn, so a nice bit of card advantage for us there. 3/3 first strike, and it's not just combat damage, this is any damage or any life loss that happens during the turn. And then post-combat main phase, we get to exile a bunch of cards and have a look and see and get the best one. So, let's dive in, shall we? Or at least suck the blood out of any humans that are lying around. But first, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be making one of these videos for every single Midnight Hunt card that's a legendary, and going further than that, every other new card that comes out. And hopefully, I'll be able to get to some in the past. So without further ado, let's have a look at my top 5. And in at number 5 for Florian, we've got a couple of ways to enable that, digging through the deck. One of the coolest ones is Flame Rift. 2 mana for a sorcery. Flame Rift deals 4 damage to each player. So it's going to deal 4 damage to us. But in Commander, we're going to be dealing 4 to each of our opponents. So that's 12 life lost. So with our Commander on the field, we go to the post-combat main phase. This doesn't even include any sort of combat damage, anything like that. We're going to be digging 12 cards and getting the best one that we can play this turn. And it's nice and cheap as well. I think that's important. This is 2 mana in your pre-combat. And post-combat, we've got more mana to be able to actually cast the rest of our spells that we may exile. Then, another cool direction you could take this deck in is Dragon's Approach. 3 mana for a sorcery, it deals 3 damage to each opponent. So for just 3 mana, we're getting a dig of 9 cards. Or if you're playing with 24 people, because some sickos play EDH with more than 3 other people. Disgusting behavior. But this can just dig you through the deck. And you may exile it and 4 other cards named Dragon's Approach from your graveyard. If you do, search your library for a dragon card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So you could go and get a Kakusho or something like that. And then a deck can have any number of cards named Dragon's Approach in it. So if you want to go down this route, well, I've just built half of your deck for you. You just pile a bunch of these in, bunch of dragons, and then do whatever else you really want to do. Then the Chandra's Ignition. 5 mana for a sorcery, and this is a sort of pseudo board wipe. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. So our commander is a 3/3, so it's going to be 3 damage to everything. But potentially we can buff him. Maybe we've got another cool creature on the field that's absolutely massive. Spoilers, there might be quite a few large creatures in the deck. But this deals damage to our opponents as well. So we're going to be getting a ton of digs through the deck to get a fantastic card out of our deck. Then there's Korvath? I don't know how you say that. That's a nightmare of a name. Fury for 5 mana. It's a sorcery. For each player, choose friend or foe. I'm going to be my own friend. And each friend discards all cards from their hand and draws that many cards +1. So a nice wheel effect. And if it deals damage to each foe equal to the number of cards in their hand. So, people generally tend to, have a lot of cards in their hand. So this can deal a ton of damage. Go to our post-combat. Then we're going to get a big dig through the deck. Really, really nice. Which brings me on to my number 4 pick. And at number 4, we're going to be casting these cards from exile. So taking advantage of this with things like Wild Magic Sorcerer is incredible. 4 mana for a 4/3 Orc Shaman. Ooh, what a creature type that is. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. So that spell that we exile with our commander generally will be the first spell we cast from exile, and then we're going to cascade through the deck for something else. So you can really set up your deck, and it's just so cool. Works fantastically with this commander. Then another couple of ways to play cards from exile here, because I see that as like a mini sub-theme of the deck. Valky, God of Lies, 2 mana for a 2/1 God. Enter the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. For each opponent, exile a creature card from revealed this way until Valky leaves the battlefield. Pay X, choose a creature card exiled with Valky with convert mana card X. Valkyrie becomes it. So we get to rip apart our opponent's hand, and we get to see every one of our opponent's hands. That's really, really cool, because then we can sort of play around things. We know a board wipe's coming, we won't overextend into it. And then we've got Tybalt Cosmic Imposter, which is on the flip side of Valkyrie. Yes, Christ, my mind fell into mush. But we can cast this instead if you've got 7 mana, and this is phenomenal. When it enters the battlefield, get an emblem with, you may play cards exiled with Tybalt Cosmic Imposter. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any colour. And +2, exile the top card of each player's library, so cards into exile, and then we can cast them from exile. Then -3, exile target artifact or creature, which thanks to his little emblem, my mind, it means we can cast whatever we exile. And then finally, -8, exile all cards from all graveyards. Add triple red. There's a nice little ritual on top of it, but we get to cast whatever is in the graveyard. Fantastic card. Then we've got Fevered Suspicion. You know, this doesn't look that suspicious. This looks absolutely horrifying. It's an 8 mana sorcery. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among those non-land cards without paying their mana cost. So the fact that they dig through their deck, you know, keep going until they actually hit something that's not a land is incredible, because with a couple of cards we're going to talk about in a second, you could potentially reveal lands and, you know, you're not actually going to hit anything. And then it has rebound. So if you cast a spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves, and then you cast it from exile at your upkeep for free. So you get to do this twice. Ooh, incredible. Then Gonti, Lord of Luxury. 4 mana, 2/3 Death Toucher. Enter the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library, exile 1 face down, put the rest on the bottom, and you can look at and play it for as long as it remains in exile. Really, really fantastic. Great enter the battlefield effect. Exactly what you want to do. And the cool thing with this commander is, because it's a Death Toucher, if we swing in with it, we're more than likely going to get 2 damage in, because unless they've got a couple of chump blockers, they don't want to block with their big commander, and then we can dig with our commander. Then the Stolen Strategy, 5 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of each opponent's library. Till end of turn, you may cast non-land cards from among those exiled cards, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any colour to cast them. So, like I was saying, this could hit lands, but the likelihood is we've got 3 extra cards a turn. So we're going to be drawing tons of cards, and then we can cast them from exile. Then, it's a Tali Primal Storm. 6 mana, 6/6. When it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from all those cards without paying their mana cost. Oh, absolutely fantastic. It's from ours as well. So, you know, maybe if you have like a vampiric tutor, you can put something on top, then exile it with this. Ooh, incredible. And it's a 6/6 for 6. Incredible. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Which brings me on to my number 3 pick. And this is all about the sort of, we're going to be dealing damage to our opponents and us. And let's take advantage of that with Rakdos, Lord of Riots. Double black, double red for a demon with 6/6. You can't cast Rakdos, Lord of Riots unless an opponent lost life this turn. Well, that's not too hard, because a lot of the deck is built around dealing damage or making our opponents lose life. Flying, trampling, creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. So, a lot of the spells, you know, 9 damage spread across, you know, things. Flame Rift or whatever it was is 12 damage. And so, well, we've got a big reduction on creatures. Why don't we cast some big old creatures like Kozilek, Butcher of Truth? 10 mana for a 12/12. When you cast a spell, draw 4 cards. That's insane. And then it's Annihilator Force. When it attacks, defending player sacrifices 4 permanents. And if it will be put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle your entire graveyard into your library. Just an incredible card. Everyone knows the Eldrazi. Everyone loves them, or fears them in every conceivable way. Then Void Winnower, 9 mana for an Eldrazi, 11/9. Your opponents can't cast spells with even converting mana cost. Your opponents can't block with creatures with even converting mana cost. A lot of board wipes are even CMC. A lot of commanders are even CMC, and this can just cripple your opponents. Do be aware though, if you're casting this card, you are going to become public enemy number 1. Everyone will be gunning for you because they're just like, I want to play spells. Please let me play my spells. Then we've got Ulmog the Infinite Gyre. Look at him spinning around crazily. 11 mana, 10/10. When you cast it, destroy target permanent. Anything, just a land. Say goodbye to your forest green mage. Indestructible, Annihilated 4, and if it puts into graveyard from anywhere, shuffle your entire graveyard in. Then another couple of great cards. Blightsteel Colossus, 12 mana, 11/11. Trample, Infect, Indestructible. And then shuffle it in if you go to your graveyard. There's a lot of that going on in these cards. Ulmog the Ceaseless Hunger, 10 mana, 10/10. When you cast it, exile 2 target permanents. Now that is an incredible thing if you're casting this for 0 mana. It's got Indestructible, and when it attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of his or her library. Fits into the exile theme, doesn't it? I mean, we don't get to cast anything from it, but our opponents, don't either. So they're going to be looking at those cards going, I could have killed you, but all my win conditions are in exile. Then there's Emrakul the Promised End. I love me a Mindslaver, and it's a 13 mana, 13/13. Costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. When you cast it, gain control target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. Blind Trample, Protection from Instants. Now, yes, we're giving our opponents an extra turn, but in that turn that you're taking, you can destroy them. Absolutely rip them to pieces. I have done it many a time, and it feels phenomenal. Which brings me on to one of my favourite commanders I've ever built. I love this card, and it works incredibly with this commander. It's Heartless Hitasugu. 5 mana for a 4/3. Tap. It deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life total, rounded down. Oh, this card is phenomenal. And with this commander, we tap Heartless Hitasugu. Say everyone's on 40. We all lose 20 life. We get to dig through 60 cards in our library and get the best one out of them. If that's not incredible, I don't know what is. And then everyone's on low life totals. We've got a lot of ways to ping and sort of kill people off. This card will win so many games. I love it. Amazing commander. Here's a couple of other ways to half life totals as well. Scourge of the Skyclaves is a 2 mana star with kicker for 5. When you cast a spell, if it was kicked, each player loses half their life, rounded up. So that's, in essence, this is a 7 mana card, even though, it's a bit deceptive. It says 2 there. Because it has power and toughness each equal to 20 minus the highest life total among players. So more than likely, it's going to be dead. So if everyone's on 40, it's a minus 20/20. You really need to be playing a lot of these sort of effects to get people down low on the life, and then this can even be cast as a 2 mana card. But really, you want to be playing it out for 7. Then there's Fraying Omnipotence. 5 mana sorcerer, each player loses half their life, then discards half the cards in their hand, then sacrifices half the creatures they control, round up each time. Excellent, just really good. And this reminds me a lot of Pox. If only this was called Mega Pox or something like that. We'll talk about Pox in a second. Then we've got Sorin Markov. 6 mana for a 4-loyalty Planeswalker, +2. Deals 2 damage to target creature or player. You gain 2 life. Ooh, nice. Then, -3. Target opponent lose life total becomes 10. So that is technically classed as life loss. So if they go to 40 to 10, well, they've just lost 30 life. And then we get to dig 30 cards into our deck. Amazing card. Pox. I seem to see you're here. Triple black for a sorcerer. Each player loses a third of his or her life, then discards a third of the cards, then sacrifices a third of the creatures, and sacrifices a third of the lands. Ooh, that last one will make people incredibly unhappy. Round up each time. Look at that artwork. It's certainly something in it. But this card is amazing in this deck. Then, this isn't exactly a way to half a life total. Well, it is if it's not blocked. Malignus is a 5 mana star, so its power and toughness are each equal to half the highest life total among your opponents, rounded up. Damage that would be dealt by Malignus can't be prevented. So, if we manage to get in, someone's on 40, it's 20/20, so it's half someone's life total, and then after that, we're going to get the dig for like half of a life total's worth of cards with our commander. Then there's Torgar, Famine Incarnate, 8 mana 7/6, and additional cost to cast this spell. You may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. When it enters the battlefield, up to one target player's life total becomes half their starting life total, rounded down. So, this is really cool because if our opponents are on an absolutely massive life total, they're playing a life gain deck, play this, they go to 20. Or if we're on like 3 life and, you know, it's really precarious, we can use this on ourselves and rock it back up to 20. Really, really awesome card and works brilliantly in the deck. Brings me on to number 1. We're dealing half of people's life totals here. So, you know, why don't we double that? Why don't we play Obosh, the Prey Piercer? 5 mana for a 3/5. It can be your companion. It starts outside of the deck only if you have odd converted mana cost cards and lands. So this is distinctly possible. I've recommended quite a few, you know, even costed cards, but you could build your deck around this sort of effect. And if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a opponent or player, it deals double that damage to that opponent or player instead. So if you wanted to play the Dragon's Approach style of deck, that is 3 mana. I would definitely have Obosh as your sort of companion, you know, just sitting at the side, waiting to come into your hand and then kill everyone. So this card works fantastically, especially with all of the things where we're dealing half of people's life total. Heartless Hidetsugu with this just wipes the table. Although you have to make sure that you're on like an odd life total, so you go to 1. If everyone else is on even, they die. Incredible fun. Then a couple of really cool ways to half life totals here. Goblin Goliath, 6 mana, 5/4. Enter the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 red goblin creatures to exceed the number of opponents you have. So fills up the board nicely and got a good couple of chump blockers. Pay 4, tap it. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent this turn, it deals double that damage to that player instead. Whew, nice. Then there's Insult. You know, I'm very offended by these insults. 3 mana, sorcery. Damage can't be prevented this turn. If a source you control would deal damage this turn, it deals double that damage instead. Amazing, amazing card. Then Injury. Injury deals 2 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target a player. So a lot of these things that I've talked about, it's life lost, and all of these are focused on damage. So these really work with Heartless the best. But this one, Wound Reflection, 6 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. That includes damage and life loss from, you know, halving life totals and things like that. So that's really, really good. Then there's Angrath's Marauder. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or player, it deals double that damage to that opponent or player instead. This is fantastic with all of the burn spells we've been talking about. Then there's Furnace of Wrath, the classic. 4 mana for an enchantment. If a source would deal damage to a creature or player, deals double that damage. And then Dictator the Twin Gods, a flashier version of that. Nice. 5 mana for an enchantment with Flash. If a source would deal damage to an opponent or player, it deals double that damage to that opponent or player instead. So this really works with all of the sort of burn spells we've been talking about. And those are my top 5 cards for this commander. Really, really cool. Nice piece of artwork. He looks very suave and sophisticated. I'd, follow him into a Warzone or something like that. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do like, comment, subscribe. Tell a friend about it. And I'll see you soon. Bye.